Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 431 of Screw the Commute podcast. We're here with Warren Carlyle. He is a British director and choreographer. Wait a minute. Larry, what is this British director and choreography stuff? We're supposed to have the really important Warren Carlyle on. Oh, I got the wrong. Oh, sorry, wrong paper. Sorry. So yeah, we're here with Warren Carlyle, but it's not that guy that just dances all day long. This is the real guy, one of the most brilliant guys that I know. And he is a community builder, is an expert at it. And I've talked to him on many occasions in person and over the web. And he's the first guy I go to if I really want to know something in depth, because he's just brilliant. So we're going to bring on Warren in a minute, not the director choreographer, by the way. So hope you didn't miss episode 430. That was a little bit of a rag on GoDaddy, right? I mean, GoDaddy, you got to love it or hate it. It's certainly a force to be reckoned with, but there's a lot of potential perils of using too many of their services. I'm fine if you get domains there, but you need to listen to that episode if you're dealing with them a lot. And there's a lot better options out there. And of course, this is my not so humble opinion. Now, I hope you didn't miss getting a copy. You know, if you've listened to this show, I've been hammering you to get a copy of my automation book. This has allowed me to steal customers from people because they're too slow to get back to them, save me millions of keystrokes. So grab yourself a copy at screwthecommute.com/automate free. We sell it for $27, but it's yours free for listening to the show. And also pick up a copy of our podcast app at screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP. And you can put us on your cell phone and tablet and take us with you on the road. Now, check out my school. One of the things that's going on with this pandemic is everybody's freaking out because they had to either quit their job or they had to come home, and kids still aren't in school. I mean, I guess they're going to burst into flames if you put them in school nowadays. People are really suffering. But I mean, 23 years ago, I've been preaching the you don't have to be stuck in these situations if you have the ability to sell from home. So I've been teaching that forever. But then about 13 years ago, I formalized it in the form of a school. It's the only licensed, dedicated internet marketing school in the country, probably the world. Warren's partner is a graduate of the school and doing extremely well. So check it out at imtcva.org. A little later, I'll tell you how you can get a full scholarship to it if you happen to be in my mentor program. And you can either use it yourself or gift it to somebody. I mean, we have people making money a few months into the school because it's hardcore skills that every business on earth needs. And so you can really help out the young people in your life, or use it for your own business, because if you go to a professional firm, you can pay literally up to 100 times what something should cost. That's just crazy for taking the time to learn some of these skills, and you can have a massive web presence on a shoestring budget. So check that out. We'll get to the mentor program later so you can possibly get a full scholarship to the school. All right, let's get to the main event. As the co-founder of the Community Leaders Association, Warren Carlyle is a community building strategist who works with purpose-driven brands and influencers to build highly engaged online communities. And he's going to really go into depth on the differences in what you may think that is. Now, he's also the founder and CEO of, listen to this, Octonation. It's the largest Octopus fan club, a nonprofit organization that inspires conservation of the ocean by teaching the world about octopuses. Now, see, I would have thought that was octopi or something, but apparently it's octopuses. Let's see. He and his communities have been featured and gotten the attention of celebrities and global organizations like Michael B. Jordan, Ellen DeGeneres, Joe Rogan. And I think I got a note to have him on again from Mark Zuckerberg, who totally depends on Warren for his success, is what I think. And Warren believes online communities are the lifeblood of brands, of a brand's relevancy in today's crowded digital marketplace, and especially now, given the global pandemic. Warren, are you ready to screw the commute?
After 400 episodes, we better be screwing the commute. We better be screwing something.
You're 431.
I know.
And you were on previously with other ones. I don't remember the numbers, but man, folks, you're going to want to go back and listen to this guy because, I take notes when he's around because his mind is like a steel trap. So tell everybody what you're doing with this community building.
So I've always been obsessed with community building. I've always been really interested in like very topical stuff. I remember as a kid, I was interested in dog breeds and, made flashcards and wanted to master every dog breed. And then I worked at Godiva and made flashcards about chocolate and learned about chocolate from all over the world. And so when Facebook came around with Facebook groups, I like lost my mind. I was like, wait a minute, I can create a community around something that I love. And I started creating communities and started working with other people, creating communities. And we've just blown a lot of these communities up. And I really feel like community leaders are this next wave that are going to far surpass, influencers that are kind of peddling shirts and makeup. I think we really can take control and start really having really important conversations online.
Now, what was the genesis of Octonation? How did that one come about?
So when I was 7, I went to an aquarium, and I remember, we had to stay in a straight line, and we walked through the aquarium. We couldn't move anywhere. They told us to put our hands behind our back, and I was at the back of the line because, of course, I was. And they all were walking forward, and I was like, the teacher isn't really looking, and so I just dipped off the back. And
How old were you? How old?
I was 7 years old.
Oh, 7 years old.
And so I decided to take my own tour because their tour was boring. And I found myself next to the Octopus exhibit. And I just remember looking at this thing and being like, they somehow captured an alien, like, because you have these big eyes with these horizontal pupils. You have its head expanding and contracting. It has 2,240 suckers. And I think I just looked up at that and I thought, like, what is this? And I think it started there. But when I went to the library and looked for resources, there wasn't any books on them. And I was like, why are there books on turtles? There's books on all these animals. There was like really no comprehensive guide or anything about octopuses. And I didn't really know what to do with that, because when you're a kid, you just kind of like, okay, well, that sucks. Like they're not giving me what I want. I don't think until you get older, you go, oh, I can create that for other people.
Right.
And so it wasn't until much later that, I learned how to use, social media, started working with Roberto, who's now my husband, but, Roberto's largely learned internet marketing from you. And, we went to, a lot of your trainings, and I was like, wait a minute, I can do this full time. Like, I can build a business online. And I think that really inspired me and him to just, screw the commute.
Yeah.
And really think, okay, how do I make products, programs, and services that serve a nonprofit organization? Or how do I make products, programs, or services that help community leaders? And so that's just kind of been my go-to is, how do I create these streams of revenue online? And so, yeah, that was kind of like the genesis of it. I started growing it. I started working with, authors, underwater photographers. I started collaborating a whole lot to find audiences of people that loved the octopus and kind of siphoned them into Octonation. And now, we're this, I think I did the numbers yesterday, we're at like close to 600,000, members across all platforms, and regularly featured by Facebook. And that's why I think you said at the beginning, Mark Zuckerberg relies on us. I mean, we were just featured. They're launching a new feature, and it's the audio. I think it's like a Clubhouse kind of like thing feature, and they included us in the article. So yeah, Facebook is always, spotlighting Octonation. One, because it's a great story, and two, because we have a very highly engaged community where they're just like, how do you have so many comments about the octopus? And so maybe we can talk more about, how do you build a highly engaged community?
Yeah, and I kind of find it hard to believe that there was 600,000 people that were just waiting for a place to talk about octopuses. I
Yeah.
think you probably developed some of them, and people told others, and it kind of grew from that.
Yeah,
You got-
because the story with that is I read this book called Soul of an Octopus, and then the first 3 pages, Cy Montgomery, she wrote that throughout history, the octopus was a demonized animal. They made it attack ships in Hollywood. They, made it, just to be the demonic kind of creature. And when people grew up, they had this irrational fear, and they're like, octopuses, oh, they're weird, they're slimy. And it was like, no, actually, they're really complex. They're super intelligent. They can recognize human faces. They want nothing to do with us because they're a squishy floating protein bar, and like they're really efficient hunters. And so they wouldn't attack us because that would expose their bodies. So like, you start learning all these things, and it's just like, oh, wait a minute. Like, it's not all about us. It's like, no, it's not. Not this time.
Well, let's back up just a second, because your husband is taking care of his mom right now, because you two have a lifestyle business.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
she just had surgery, and Roberto, has had some health issues in the past, and we know that everything's going to be okay. I think it's like this freedom that once you know this system, and once you plug in with people who know the system, like you, Tom, and you like buy your products and programs. I remember one of the first things that we bought from you, I think it was that how to build a website for $99 or something like that.
$97. Yeah.
And it was like the most comprehensive thing. And I think prior to that, Roberto had gotten ripped off like $15,000.
Yeah.
And then we built your website for $99 and ended up making money online. And it was just like, sometimes, if you're not getting results with other people, it's like, learn the damn thing and just knock it out and start generating revenue, start listening to a mentor, and just start doing the work, instead of looking to be like, I don't know how to do that. It's like, actually, it's pretty easy once you start going through somebody who has created a product that walks you through it.
Yeah, and the professionals don't want you to know. They see you coming, because in 2 seconds they can tell if you know what you're talking about or not. Then they can sell you anything, because you need that website, you need all this stuff. But
and you were just like, okay, you need that website. It needs to be very basic. Set it up, and then you need a payment portal, someone to give you money. Then it's just like it walks you through how do you create that first product, and it's like then you sell it. It's like, okay,
no, there's no hocus pocus to it. There's just steps you take, like in any kind of thing. But so into the community building, a lot of people, over the past years, some people get discouraged, including myself sometimes. I mean, I've been very successful, but it's like I never hit anything really big. I never hit any millions and millions of downloads and all this. And so it's a little discouraging. Like you go on Instagram, the explore function, and you see, bikini after bikini after bikini. And trust me, if I was in a bikini, that would not be in the explore page of Instagram.
Actually, Tom, it just might.
Yeah, that's true. So this community leader is a different thing than an influencer, right?
Yeah. So
tell us about that.
A community leader could be an influencer. They don't typically subscribe to be an influencer. I know that with Octonation, I'm not necessarily the face of Octonation. The talent is actually the different types of octopuses that we feature. But a community leader is somebody who is really the driving force, and is like almost like the content DJ, or the person who has a really good eye at curating, almost like, you have museum curators that curate these really cool exhibits for people to walk through. A community leader walks people through really epic topics that they have just fallen in love with. And so you have groups like, I Like to Paint My Shoes, which is a group that's nothing but artists that love painting Vans or painting whatever shoes that they have. And they have thousands and thousands of members. And then, Tom, would know how to create a product, program, or service for somebody who would want to first get into painting their shoes. But I mean, there's just so many stories. Mm-hmm. It's, if you just go to Facebook's page, this is like a pro tip. Go to Facebook's page and scroll down the communities that they talk about, and understand that those communities that they feature have a very clearly defined who are they serving, and a very clearly defined what is the topic. The more vague those two things are, and so if you say, I help all women entrepreneurs make money online, well, entrepreneurs and women, that's a huge space. You're going to alienate somebody who's an entrepreneur in the food service industry versus in the tech industry versus in the OnlyFans. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so there's no way that you can create content. And there is a way that you can create content, but what's going to happen is that the end user is going to have to reframe your knowledge to their specific industry, and you're going to lose the strength of the connection that you have with that community member because you've decided to be broad in your topic category. And so if you look at the topics that are, if you look at the groups that Facebook are featuring, they're featuring Black girls who golf. So a community for women who, that have a shared identity that choose to golf and that want to remove the stigma that, it's not possible for them, or maybe like, what spaces can they show up in? Like their collective feeling about that and the collective sport makes it to where the community leader of that organization has a deep connection to everybody that follows, meaning every single time that she goes to post, she is going to be talking to a community where 100% of the community relates to it. And the more you can't say that, the more you say, well, what I'm saying is 30% of my community, and then the other 40%, you can't say that anymore. Because what the algorithm does, and what all algorithms do, is they're judging the affinity that you have with your community. And the more broad your topic is, then the more you're going to suffer in the algorithm. What Mark in the algorithm is going to say is, I'm not sure if you've built the deepest connection you potentially could as a result of you choosing a very broad category. And so just getting very specific with what you choose is going to make you hit big in the algorithm.
Yeah, and so a couple things here. So yeah, first of all, you have to be very specific. But the bottom line from the way I started this segment was, you don't have to be a gorgeous bikini model or male model, which, I mean, you were in the modeling industry, but that's not why Octonation is so successful. So you don't have to be. So everybody should be encouraged by that, because if you can just do what he says in a specific niche, you can be massively successful.
Yeah, and it starts with like that who and that what. And if you're really passionate about something in particular, like I've just seen so many groups. Like I've worked with like the largest Gilmore Girl fan club, which is a multi-six-figure business of people that love nostalgia as like the Gilmore Girls. There's this group called Wild Green Memes for Ecological Fiends. So people that love memes that are science or ecology related, and they have over 300,000 members. They have a Patreon account where they have thousands of Patreons, and all they do is create these really funny niche specific memes as it relates to ecology. Like, you can be this curator behind the scenes, kind of very similar to what I did with Octonation. I was like, I'm not seeing the platform or the community that is showcasing the octopus in the way that I feel like it needs to be showcased. And nowadays, because we have a publishing platform like Facebook, and really this is platform agnostic. You can do this on Twitter, you can do this on TikTok. Now I can curate that experience. And so what did I do? I started reaching out to aquariums all over the world, and I did virtual octopus encounters. I started reaching out to underwater photographers and collecting their underwater photography material, and then pairing it up with a science writer who would talk about that specific species of octopus. Like I created almost like the National Geographic of octopus related stuff because I didn't see it there. And so if you have this thing that you're really passionate about, that you're like, you know what, they're not really doing a good job at this. I really feel like boxer dogs need to have, like, they need to be the most favorite or beloved dog. How can I create this community? You can really go into that and even be more specific, training specifically for boxer dogs, or, the more specific you can get with that, like the more. And I just go back to every single time you post, if it doesn't apply to 100% of the community, you could do a better job at being more niched in. And and that's just it. Because if it's 30% of the community here, 30% of the community here, and the other 30%, Facebook goes, okay, you're going to have to spend money on ads to reach all of those different varying communities. We're not just going to organically serve all of those audiences because it's too broad. And that's just what I've seen happen over the years, is the more like Nike you get, where you cater to all these different, women, men, tennis, basketball, all these different things, you're going to have to spend money on ads. Like, you're not Nike yet. And so serve a specific audience and then build from there, build notoriety. And that's my advice for that.
Now, what was the decision process to make a nonprofit out of this?
My decision process with that was, and I could have probably chosen, Roberto, and me go back and forth about this, and we're thinking about creating a separate LLC for the merchandising.
Mm-hmm.
But so people kept contacting me like the second year after I created Octonation and just wanted to give me money. Like, they were just like, hey, we really love your post. We want to support what you're doing. They assumed that I was a nonprofit because of how educational I was.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, hey, where can I send $50? Where can I send $20? And I was like, I can't take your money. And I was telling Roberto, like, and he was like, well, how often is it happening? I was like, it's starting to happen like 3 or 4 times a week. And he was like, okay, well,
yeah,
like, this is what it would look like to start a nonprofit and develop programming. And I really I started looking at organizations, and I started looking at their mission statements, and I started looking at their 990s. Because if you look at an organization like a nonprofit, if you type in a nonprofit and then type in 990, their tax records are public.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking at the top organizations in the oceanic field, and they were bringing in $500 million
right.
A year, and all of these different things. And I was just like, oh, and I was just like, I can really get my community to get behind this programming that I want to create for Octonation. And that's what I started doing. I started developing out programs like Interview with an Octopus and Octonation Kids, which is curriculum for elementary, pre-K through 5th grade, and just started, building and more, and then applying to accelerator programs. Got accepted to Facebook accelerator program, and started just moving up that ladder of that nonprofit organization. But as I look more and more, like, I think merchandising and licensing, I think we're going to create a separate LLC for that.
Yeah. The reason I bring it up is because I'm taking a grant writing course right now. Okay. And just as a educational thing, but I'm also
I'll let you write grants for me, Tom.
Oh, thanks. But it's as I'm going through the course, I mean, I took the course knowing that most of the money was not for profit. That's available is not for profit, but it appears like 90+% of the money is for nonprofits. But there's just enormous amounts out there. Every company you can think of has a foundation.
There's a lot of nonprofits. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations, because I've worked in this space for, well, I mean, not that long, but I feel like, anytime I get into a space, I study it like crazy.
Right. Yeah.
But, since 2018, we launched our nonprofit, and I've been looking at all these like programs, and a lot of nonprofit organizations, the biggest ones, they contract for-profit agencies to do a lot of the work. Mm-hmm. So, in a lot of ways, that's, what some of them are doing. When you get these, $1 million, $20 million, $1 billion, contracts from the government, as a nonprofit organization, they're hiring these for-profit, agencies to do work for them. So, that's just kind of what I've seen.
Yeah. But I'm wondering how fishy it looks if you own the for-profit part that the nonprofit is funding.
I think as long as you can draw a line to the mission, and that's what I've done with Octonation. As long as you can draw a clear line to, as a result of working with this for-profit company, our impact has grown this much. That's directly in line, and that's ethical. Like, and I mean, I've hired plenty of contractors, some writers that have written blogs that have gone viral. I've contracted me and Roberto to do some of the internet marketing stuff that you taught us. And it has a direct correlation to the success of the nonprofit. So
yeah. So what I'm thinking is for my school, it's I mean, I've preached this for 23 years, but it's always been something that's perfect for a physically challenged person.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these grants to possibly help physically challenged people go through my school. So not only can they learn remotely, but they can legitimately work remotely, which they always could have, but it's in the forefront now because of the pandemic. Everybody's working at home now, so it's become commonplace.
And
So,
this is a really good case study right here, even just listening to you talking,
mhm,
because just because you have, this internet marketing training school and just all of these things, doesn't mean that you couldn't create a Facebook group that caters to a specific audience of people, so that when somebody is searching in the search algorithm, or they're typing in these specific keywords, it could funnel into a service that you provide on the back end. But on the front end, the Facebook group title, it's very specific. So the who and the what. So
mhm,
internet marketing for, disabled veterans, like
mhm,
something like that, or like creating a business from home for disabled veterans, something like that, where the consumer can read that and be like, that's me. Or they can say, I know exactly who needs this course,
mhm,
or I
right.
know exactly who needs to be in this group. You have to empower people to be able to talk about you behind your back. And I always tell people, because I worked in the fashion industry, you want to confidently manufacture the words that are being said about you behind your back. And if you're not in control of that brand, or that positioning statement, or that marketing statement, then you're giving your friends, hey, what does Tom Antion do? I don't know. He seems like he just sits at home and makes a whole lot of money. If we don't if we don't give them that language, like with Octonation, hey, Octonation is the largest Octopus fan club. That's something that I had to create, because in the beginning, people were just like, what is Octonation? And I was like, oh, and then I realized, oh, that's an issue. Like, Octonation doesn't mean anything.
Mhm,
That's like a made up word. And so I added that title to it so that it would immediately, every single time somebody was talking about it, that tagline would immediately follow. And so knowing that about like you or your business, it's really hard to recommend, you know, people to their friends and their family if they don't know. And I always tell my friends that are going through this process, just call 3 of your friends, or call 3, people that know you really well, and say, hey, if somebody needed my product or service, or you came into contact with somebody who you felt like needed me, like, how would you describe what I do to them? And just listen to them talk. And if they are
mhm,
so completely off base, you
right.
haven't done a really good job at controlling that conversation. And so people know about me, like Warren Carlyle. He's the people who help build fanatical online communities. So if you want to build a community around a given topic, Warren Carlyle is your guy. And no topic is too strange. He has a community of octopus people, and that's the conversation that I feel like people can confidently have about me behind my back. And so as a result of that, I've gotten so much referrals from that. But it's like knowing what's that positioning statement.
Yeah, and the only trouble I think you'd ever have is if somebody wanted to build a community around choreography.
Yeah, because Warren Carlyle, it's funny, Tommy, when you mentioned him, I actually know him. We're friends. So we met in New York because people kept getting us confused, because he would go into places and they were like, "Oh, we saw your photos online." And
Octopus, right?
yeah, he was like, "No, that's not me." He goes, "That's a Warren Carlyle that does modeling." And they're like, "Oh, we were going to say you look a lot different from your photos."
Oh, yeah, you put on a little weight since. Yeah, so if people want to be a community leader, there's a lot of details to it. So you started an association. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so me and Roberto, after years of working very closely with Facebook and Instagram, and just a lot of these platforms. And when I say working with Facebook, I mean Facebook has paid me to teach their page admins, their community leaders, on how to grow communities online.
Mhm,
And so because I've been in the mix, and I've seen how they make decisions, and who they're interested in helping and how they're interested in helping them, I just thought, there's a lot of community leaders that want to learn how to build sustainable online businesses. And what I love about all these platforms is that they really teach you how to use their products, right? So Instagram will teach you how to put a sticker on a story. Facebook will teach you how to better manage your group and facilitate conversation. but they always will shy away from money. They will
Yeah,
shy away
right.
from products, programs, services, bringing people off of the platform, because no social media platform wants people off of the platform. They're like, just do everything on our platform so that we can make our advertisers happy.
Right.
And so I was like, there's a huge opportunity to create an association for these community leaders to start teaching them, hey, you need to own your first party data. You need to own people's numbers, their addresses, their emails, because you don't own that when you're on a social media website. And so I was like, there's a huge opportunity to teach these community leaders to be sustainable, to teach them to the games they have to play to be seen by more people on different social media platforms. So me and Roberto, we launched the Community Leaders Association actually just a month ago. And Roberto has frameworks that he uses to teach community leaders about monetization. I think he has a blueprint for for community leaders and developing revenue. And my whole thing with community leaders is teaching them how to get people to show up. So how to be deserving of people's attention. And so we started this association, and people are loving it. I had a class actually just yesterday where I talked about community clarity, and the whole entire class, I talked about niching down, and I even had time at the end to workshop with the people that were there. I'm like, what's your niche? Or like, who's your community for and what's it about? And we kept going through and came up with a lot of really great communities that these people are excited about. Some of them already had communities and they were just strengthening the connection that they had by being more intentional. But other ones, we really got specific with, how could you mentioned, not being able to hit big for whatever reason. And it typically comes back to that community clarity. Are we being very, very intentional and specific so that when we collaborate with other companies, like I could just go down the rabbit hole of veterans and with disabilities, teaching them internet marketing, who's currently catering to that market? Are there organizations? Are there, governmental programs that are in existence? And then curating all of that information in one specific group and then getting media around it. And just like I said, creating that group and then getting Facebook, to feature you on their page because you're so specific. Facebook has business goals as it relates to micro communities. And maybe they want to tap into that veteran disabled community that wants to learn how to be entrepreneurial and grow a business online. It's like being very hyper intentional and being the go-to community so that everybody knows how to refer people into that community. And it's serving a specific niche. And so the Community Leaders Association is going to be all about that. It's going to be all about people and servicing all of these micro communities and being the best in business.
And how do they find it?
They can go to communityleadersassociation.com. That's the website that we have right there. We're still in the beta phase because we're getting a lot of, and this is just community in general, you don't build it in a vacuum. So you don't have to be the one that develops all of the content, all of the, whatever. A lot of it is talking to community leaders and being like, hey, what do you guys need? What's your biggest struggle right now? And then starting there and developing a product around it, a program, a service. If it is, say, a lot of our community leaders don't have merchandising, then the next month we're teaching about print on demand and how you create an online store so that you can immediately turn on revenue. If it's another thing and they want media, then we're teaching community leaders how to get a publicist or to become their own publicist and to pitch their group for, specific days around the year that it makes sense for them to pitch their group. So the program is gonna largely depend on what we're seeing, like our community leaders saying they need, but then also developing that library that they can go back to really pick and choose what they need.
So are you bringing in other experts on topics or things like that, or is that
for sure?
in the
like
future?
With speaking, or internet marketing, that's like somebody we would bring you in for to teach these communities. Say they have. Like I have some community leaders that have 3 million followers and they haven't generated $1 online.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Because the community leaders aren't necessarily business people and they don't get into community leadership to make money. They get into it because they're so passionate about the topic, and they don't get that money part. And so what we're teaching them is you can create a sustainable business, with 3 million people offering a product, a program, or a service. And I don't think anybody is really doing that. They're not servicing community leaders in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we felt like there was a huge need for that.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that's communityleadersassociation.com, folks. And yeah, so Warren's been dropping some great tips for you about specific stuff. And I know, I'm fortunate I was in it from the beginning, so I had opportunities that are harder to tap now. But I went to like 87 different industries when I was first starting my speaking career. And I just had to fight it out for every job because nobody ever heard of me. And like you said, it wasn't easy to talk about me. What does he do? He's in the Pennsylvania Dry Cleaners Association one day, and next I'm in the Nebraska Plumbing Association. So the word didn't spread. So niching down is the way to go now. And you can
And
make,
honestly, Tom, it's
Yep.
like a lot of unlearning too, because back when you were doing speaking and going on different stages, you could captivate certain audiences. Whereas like online, you have to be very intentional. It's almost like, physical locations. Like outside of my my apartment right here, I have a Whataburger that has a physical location that people can go to. Online, if you're this like vague business
right.
that doesn't have this physical location, that means you have to be even more niched into something so that all signs point to you for that specific thing. And so that's why, and I just want to give you another quick example of yesterday. There was this woman who was a Disney travel planner, and she wanted to help everybody that wanted to travel to Disney. And I said, there's an issue with that. And I was like, because people want to have specific experiences at Disney. I was like, if you were a bartender in your life and you were also a Disney travel planner, then your Facebook group or your community online could be nothing but the different experiences you need to have drinking around Disney World, and like all the different cocktails they have at different places and all the different drinks you could get at different restaurants. And as a result of doing that, doing what you love, which is that whole being a bartender and being a Disney travel planner, you could create this epic community that's all about drinking at Disney World. And you could tell a lot of people, you could do trips, and you could be known for that person, and you could get on the media and be like, this person knows where to get a good, margarita at, Disney World. And so you can just see how that story starts to come to life, and you can almost see that community existing. Well, it doesn't exist yet. And so even if like you had a daughter and you wanted to, and it was like the perfect trip for the princess at Disney World, and you wanted to be a Disney travel planner that specifically catered to young girls who wanted to go to Disney World as a princess and go to the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo boutique and have this, princess, meal at the castle.
That's where I want to go. I've been dying to go to the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo technique.
But do you see what I mean around like these very specific niche communities? You could be known as the travel planner who helps these young girls be a princess at Disney World, and you could become known for that. And so that's why I really want like people who are listening to, when they think they have a niche and they think it's clear enough, like make it even more like the who and the what. Make sure that those are very concise and clear, so that there's almost no competition in the space, because of how your expertise paired with your topic, paired with that community, there's just nobody that could touch you in that space because of your unique experience. And so I think with Tom, with all of the unique expertise in the fields that you have, if you pair like internet marketing mentorship or, with veterans, with, whatever, nobody can touch you in that space. Like, because just, it, like, it. And so that's just, getting clear and being like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then just curating that experience for that community, it'll blow up. That's how communities get really, really big.
Beautiful, beautiful tips, everybody. So we're going to take a brief sponsor break. When we come back, we'll ask Warren what a typical day looks like for him, being a massive community leader. So folks, about 27 years ago, I started selling on the commercial internet, which was when it started around 1994. But now I'm throwing it all away, and I'm just going to be a community leader. So there's our ad for today. So I guess I'm in a way a community leader, but not to the level that Warren's talking about, and it's very inspiring. I saw and another thing, folks. I've been there and done that, but the schoolhouse door is always open. That's what an old coal miner told me when I was in West Virginia. He says, "Yep, the schoolhouse door is always open." And I always saw my dad after he was retired. He sat down and read the World Book Encyclopedia, which most of you maybe not even ever seen one, but it's like 26 volumes plus all the supplements. so I'm a continuous learner. That's why I have brilliant people like Warren on. But a lot of people want to get into this, and as he and Roberto were doing years ago, they needed somebody to teach them some stuff that, once you've sent out a billion emails and had shopping carts and websites and everything, you might learn a little bit. So I can cut your learning curve down tremendously. And it's in the form of my mentor program, which is the longest running, most successful, most unique ever in this field of digital and internet marketing. You have an immersion weekend at the Great Internet Marketing Retreat Center in Virginia Beach, where we have a TV studio, so we shoot marketing videos for you. I also kind of turned the world on its head because guys at my level were charging 50 or 100 grand up front to teach you this stuff. And a lot of these people would be hiding out in some aquarium somewhere because they wouldn't teach if you did give them the money. So I just charged an entry fee, which is like 10 times less than they were charging. And for me to get my 50 grand, you have to net 200 grand. Well, people like that, and 1,700 students later, it's still going strong. So, and you get a scholarship to my school, which you can either use yourself or gift to somebody. And it would be one of the best legacy gifts you could ever give to a young person, because these 4-year traditional schools now are not what they were when I was coming up through the system. They teach you how to protest, and then you get out with no skills and you compete for jobs at Starbucks. So my school teaches really in-demand skills that you can be making money. I can't guarantee it, but a lot of people can do it, make money even before graduation. So check that out at greatinternetmarketingtraining.com and get in touch with me. I'm very accessible and happy to talk to you about your future online. All right, let's get back to one of the most brilliant people that I personally know, and a community leader par excellence. So, Warren, tell us what it's like running your association and doing all the things you're doing with consulting with people and all that.
Yeah, so I would say that the first thing that I do, Tom is an influencer and a community leader because I remember when we went up to his training camp, and we've traveled up there a couple of times, but we saw his beautiful German Shepherds, and I remember me and Roberto were just like, we were like, we're not gonna get a dog, or whatever, but we just saw the connection that Tom had with these dogs, and we were just like, are we really gonna get a German Shepherd? And so not only did we get one, but we got two.
I was going to say part of your day is cleaning up dog puke or dog hair.
Well, Walt wasn't bad, but he doesn't have a sensitive stomach, so we got lucky with him. But Lily, you never know with her. But so for me, I wake up and of course I take the dogs out. I come back and I start looking at what's going on in the world. So like I get on Twitter and I look at the trending topics, or like what's going on, because there's a lot of my community leaders that tap into what's happening today to kind of ride the wave. If you're a community leader and something's going on that matches your niche, if you jump onto it, you can quickly kind of newsjack that. And
do you
make
use
it
anything like Google Alerts or anything?
Yeah, I use Google Alerts. Mm-hmm. I have it for like Octopus and things like that. But for my community leaders, like I have one who's a pop culture legal commentator. She was the former district attorney in Los Angeles for 15 years. And she moved to Nashville, and she created a YouTube channel. Her name's Emily D. Baker, if you want to check her out.
She needs to go back there. They need her. They need her desperately.
She's so great at what she does. But what was interesting when I first met her she had a completely different business. It was like this, she was selling contracts to entrepreneurs that wanted to get legit. So they, needed terms and conditions on the bottom of their website. And as I was listening to her talk, I was just like, you're a talent. And she was like, what? And I was like, you could have your own YouTube show and just get paid to talk. And she was like, I don't even know what that looks like. I don't come from a generation where that seems illegal. And so I was like, no. And I was like, and I got to talking with her and we put her on YouTube, but over 6 months, she's gained over 100,000 subscribers that listen to her talk for hours. I mean, she goes live and she speaks for hours about legal contracts, about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or the Britney Spears conservatorship or these pop culture terms, but she breaks down the contracts on live stream. And so I say all of that to say that I start looking at kind of like what's going on, what community leaders are in my space that I can give them a tip and say, hey, you should really talk about this today. And I do that naturally for like the people in the Community Leaders Association. Once I know they're clearly defined who and their what, the topics just make sense. I'm like, you should really start talking about this and facilitate a conversation within your community, because you have a community that can really make headlines for this if you play your cards right. And so a lot of them start doing that. And so I do that. I will send out texts to people, just, check in with them. Me and Roberto are very hands-on people, very similar to you, Tom, like with your mentees. Like you're in their inboxes, you are making sure that they're successful. And it's not just about money for you. It's about like you really being excited about them seeing what's possible.
Yeah. It's that's what I was put on the earth for.
Yeah. And so I'll start reaching out to them, and then I come back and I start working. I check in with my team for Octonation. I have a science writer, I have a creative director, I have a blog manager, and we kind of like we'll meet and talk about like what's going out today. And then I start phone calls with different community leaders, and then some days I'll have a call with an executive leadership coach. I recommend, even if you're at the highest level, that you have a coach that
schoolhouse door is always open, right?
Yeah, keeps you accountable, or keeps you like my executive leadership coach. He's really taught me a lot about the nonprofit world, because I got into that world and I was like, I don't know like what I'm really doing, or how do you even develop programs, like, and he knew that space, and so he's really guided me through that. And then I'll have calls with sometimes different platforms. Like I've spoken to higher ups at TikTok about community. I've spoken to higher ups at Facebook. I'm probably on the call with Facebook corporate like 2 or 3 times a week now, because of all the stuff that they're developing for community leaders. And so yeah, it's just a bunch of stuff around community leaders, and really this new wave of success that people can have online by developing these very specific niche communities
without wearing a bikini.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing.
It's really amazing. I mean, some of the topics of these groups of people that they're making tons, and it's not even necessarily about money, but sometimes you see it and you're just like, if this person can do it, like there's really no excuse for anybody to not do it. I think it's just an idea of them really not knowing how to pair their expertise with a niche. And what I've heard from a lot of people is they're like, I don't want to like cut or exclude anybody. I don't want to be exclusive. And I say, well, your community wants you to be exclusive. Like your community, like communities love being exclusive. They love having people really understand, German Shepherd owners, for example. We love, other German Shepherd owners that think our dog is the best dog and there's no other dog, on the planet that could even hold a candle to it. Like we love that. And so it's the same thing when you start developing and excluding other people from communities. It's not a thing to be negative. It's just certain communities have different values. And you have to just respect that. And so,
well, it's not going to work if to the level that you want if you try to be something to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And just like going back to the values, I don't know if we talked about it on your last podcast, but I have the 7 C's of building a fanatical community. it's this whole long, drawn out thing. But after clarity, which is what we've talked about kind of today, is core values. And core values is like the identity of your community. And you have to really make sure that you're intentional about that, because cancel culture is a thing. But if you build into the value set of your community that you're not politically correct, and that's just a thing that people, if you want to join this community and you want to be feeling like you're walking on eggshells, this is not the community for you. If you're upfront about that, and that's built into the DNA of your community, you don't have to worry about your community members canceling you, because you've always been upfront about this. And so with my community, Octonation, we don't Aquarius shame. And so if there's a photo of a son and daughter, if there's a photo of a father and daughter and he's holding her at an aquarium and they're looking at an animal or something, we're not going to be like, drain the tank. Like, this is so anti blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you're not doing that in Octonation. We're pro science. We're pro accredited aquarium. Like, it's just not happening in here. And so once you have that value set in your community and you start building that community up, then things like that don't happen. So it's like being very clear with what the guidelines are in your community and what you will choose to accept and what's just not okay. And that's another thing that we're going to touch in the Community Leaders Association, is just, how do you develop that identity to where, like, you don't have issues in the comment section, like people aren't canceling each other, people aren't constantly fighting, because you can say, hey, that's not what we're about here. Like, when you join this community, you agreed to this value set. If you want to argue, then bring it to another Facebook group. It's just not happening here. Unless it's a civil discourse. There's no name calling.
That's good leadership right there. There. They have to set the tone.
Yeah.
So, boy, this is, again, awesome. I think I'm going to try to have you back a month or so and talk about how you turn all this into money, because that was one of the first questions I believe I asked you a long time ago when you were building this Octonation. Is like, where's the money? I don't see the money. And you showed me. So we'll get into that on another time. But anyway, folks, you go to communityleadersassociation.com. You're ready to accept new members, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And it's still in beta, so if there's a few glitches, you'll get over it. But it's certainly something that should give everybody hope that simply anybody can do this. You don't have to be some special supermodel to do this, which is what I'm thrilled about.
So, yeah, if there's a few glitches, you can just sound off in our Facebook group that we have for community leaders and say, hey, I wish this was a thing, or I want this tooltip or resource. And because, we're in beta, we can be like, guess what? We can create that.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. So thanks so much for coming on, man.
For sure. Thank you so much, Tom.
All right, folks, go out there and become community leaders, and let's